Hello, everyone. Welcome to our May online meetup. And I hope all of you are safe and well. And thank you very much for joining us in this month online meetup as well. Let me introduce our two speakers. So first, our guest speaker, he's no longer a guest. He's Mr. Suman Debnath. He's a principal developer advocate at AWS. He visited Sri Lanka in last January for AWS reInvent recap session. So Suman, welcome back, and thank you very much for accepting our invitation.
Thank you so much. Yeah.
So then we have Mr. Rumesh Hapuarachi. He's one of the organizers of our meetup, and he's also a tech lead at 99ers Technology. So Rumesh, welcome.
Thank you very much.
Without further ado, I think we can start off with our first session. Suman, let me hand it over to you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Manoj and Ramesh, for giving me this opportunity to talk to you and your whole community. So before I get started, can you see my screen?
Yes, we can.
Are you able to see a browser?
Yeah.
Okay, cool. Thank you so much, everyone, for joining in. My name is Suman Debnath, and I work with the developer relations team in India for AWS, and I'm very excited to meet you guys again. I think last I met, as Manoj mentioned, during the recap in January last week, and after that, all this COVID thing started. And I hope that all of you are safe and using this time to learn a little bit out of your comfort zone as well. Right. So today what we are going to do is we'll try to discuss a little bit about Amazon Comprehend, and later on, if time permits, I will also show you a little bit about Amazon Comprehend Medical, which is just an extension of Amazon Comprehend for medical domain. Okay, so it's pretty interesting. And this Jupyter notebook or code, whatever it is, I will share it after this session, so you can play around and make use of this while exploring. So I don't want to get into the theory side because there are lots of material available online, and if you need, I can share it with you as well. But I just thought to put together a few of the demos which might give you an intuition of how this whole thing works. Okay, so to give you a brief about Amazon or AWS machine learning services, we have lots of services. Like if you come to the login page of AWS console, you will find all of these services under machine learning. These are all our offering under machine learning. There is a service called machine learning as well, but this is a deprecated, so you can ignore this. So everything is now came under SageMaker. So basically what at AWS we did was we categorized all the services into 3 different layers. Okay, so one layer is for very niche people who are very much into machine learning and they use machine learning day in, day out. So you can think of them as masters and PhD holders in data science and statistician who just want to use the hardware or infrastructure from AWS, and on top of it they have enough skill sets to build of their own. Okay, so for them we have a separate set of services, and then we have another set of people who are software developers, but they are a kind of new to machine learning, but not very new to machine learning. So for them we have a service called SageMaker, and within that SageMaker we have lots of features, like you can build your model, train your model, and all of that. And then we have the last category, which is we call it as the AI services, where you don't have to be a machine learning engineer at all. So you can be a software developer, and what we do is you can use our services as an API. Okay, so like you don't have to model anything, you don't have to train anything. What you can do is you can just use our endpoints to make some prediction. Okay, so I know that this may not sound that that clear, but let me show you one quick thing before we dive into comprehend. So let's say we try a service called translate. Okay, so we can always go to our console and select translate. Okay, we have translate here, but we will not use it from the console. I just want to show you how a software developer can use these services. Okay, so let's say we go to translate or let's try comprehend itself. And what you can do is, let's say I want to do a text analysis of this of some text. Okay, so let's say I type something: thank you so much for joining. Okay, and I just click on analyze text. Okay, so now you can see that I have not written any code to train a model and any of those things, but I could know that this text contains positive sentiment, right? It is having 99% positive sentiment, and there are a lot of other things that we can see. But this is all I wanted to give you an intuition of how this AI-based services looks like. Okay, now we can go deep and understand what this comprehend and what happened actually when I clicked on this text analyze text. What happened in the backend? Okay, so comprehend is a service which can be used for text analysis. Okay, so when I say text analysis, it can do a lot of analysis. Like it can understand the sentiment of the text. It can pick up major entities, and we will see what that means. And it can also predict what language that text is. Okay, whether it's in English or Hindi or whatever. Okay, so we have lots of languages supported as of now. This is the list, but we keep on adding a supported language as time progresses. Okay. So recently we started supporting Hindi, which is our national language. So there are lots of languages that we support as of today. Now, what are the use cases, right? So uh, there are a lot of use cases. One of them is, let's say you are running a conference. Okay, so let's say this is a small meetup, right? But we can think of this as a conference, and then you what the organizer will do is at the end of the conference they will take the feedback, right? And after that feedback, let's say the conference attendees are 10,000 or 20,000. Now the idea is to take the feedback in a constructive way, right? So that they can do better in the next year. So how they can do it? So for that, they need to analyze the text, right, of the feedback that they receive from the attendees. So for that, you need some machine learning algorithm or the machine learning feature or AI-based feature which can do that analysis very quickly, right? Because the feedback will come in the form of text. So someone might write that, okay, I like this conference, but I wanted this, right? So if you hire someone to read all those content and then come up with your own analysis, it will take a lot of time, right? So that is one of the use case. So that you can take some business decision based on the sentiment of some text, right? Then you can also use this to improve your search results. A lot of times we go to internet and search for what we want, right? And we always want that the search result should give us the result in such a way that whatever I'm looking for comes within first 2 or 3 links, right? So to improve that search efficiency, you need to analyze the text that the user type in, so that you get to the right place. So that improves the user experience. So that is also one of the use case. Also, there is one more use case, like customer ticketing. Like a lot of times you might have seen in today's world, we order a lot of things online. Literally all the business runs online, at least today, during this COVID time and going forward. So there are a lot of issues that we as a customer face, and we might want to raise a ticket, right? So like, this is not working, that is not working, or whatever. So it is not feasible for any company to appoint an individual person to respond to all of those queries, right? So you can use comprehend to analyze and categorize the text and streamline that ticket to the right team, correct? So that you don't waste time on cascading the ticket to the right team. Now, this service comes under natural language processing. Basically, this is a deep learning. There are a lot of neural networks at the back end, but you don't have to worry about all of that. But NLP is very much needed. Why NLP is needed? Why can't we just, do text analysis just like that, right? So one example is, let's say you want to convert one sentence from one language to another language, right? Let's say English to Hindi, right? So we know all the words of English, right? And we know all the words in Hindi. So we can always do the translation, right? By, translating each and every word to the respective word of the other language, right? But that doesn't work always, right? So let's say if I take an example of Bengali, so you may not aware of Bengali, but I will, I'm from Calcutta, and there the local language is Bengali. So Bengali is very much different than English and Hindi, right? And what happens is, if I do word-to-word, translation, the Bengali translation of this "please drink water" would be "please eat water," because we don't say in Bengali there is nothing called drink. We always address everything by eat. Okay, so that's why this normal text translation doesn't work. So we need a much sophisticated way to translate language, and that is one of the use case of NLP, natural language processing, which comes under deep learning. And again, deep learning comes under the bigger branch of machine learning. Now, when we talk about machine learning or any prediction, there are a couple of terms that you will see in the demo as well, but I just want to give you some intuition of those terms, which are very, very important. One is the confidence. So what confidence is basically, whenever a machine is predicting something, the machine will also say how confident machine is predicting that result, right? So let's say you ask me something, okay, Suman, tell me what is the temperature of Bangalore today. I can roughly say that it's 25 degrees centigrade, but then you might ask me, okay, are you confident? How much confidence that you have? So I might say that, okay, I am 80% confident this is the temperature, because I have not opened the TV news channel to read that and give you the right answer. So in machine learning, confidence score is nothing but how confident that machine is, or the model is, predicting that response. Okay, and then accuracy is how whether this response is accurate or not. So let's say if I ask the machine where Manoj stays, and if the answer is Colombo, and the machine says that it is having 99% confidence, that means the machine feels 99% confidently that Manoj stays in Colombo, but the accuracy is 100% because I know that he stays in Colombo, right? So accuracy is always with respect to the actual result, okay, which is not the prediction, with respect to the actual result. So these are the two terms that you should always remember whenever you're talking about machine learning in general. So we will see that in comprehend, if you type something like any text, okay, so let's say, let me try this out. I stay in Kolkata. Okay, let me try this. So if you see here, where is it? Yeah, if you see here, it has automatically categorized Kolkata as a location, right? So this is what the comprehend can do. And also it says it is 99.999, so almost it is 100% sure that Kolkata is a location. I did not say that Kolkata is a location. I just said I stay in Kolkata. So this is what entities means. Okay, so it can categorize text based on different entities. If I further say that I work for Amazon, and then I analyze, it should categorize Amazon as an organization. You see that? It already categorized organization, Amazon as an organization. And again, whenever machine predicts something, it will always have some confidence score. Okay, it will never give you some prediction without telling you how confident it is. Because what happens is, as a software developer, what you will do is you will take this JSON response and you will filter based on the confidence score. So the machine might predict something which has very low confidence, so you will filter that. You will not take everything, right? So you will filter that and then take everything which is maybe 90% more confident, having a score of more than 90%, so that your application is more accurate. Correct, because machines are always not always correct, so you need to be careful about that. So now let's see what happens in the back end. So now here, this is a web application written in Node.js by one of my teammate, Nick. But what is actually happening behind the scene? This is a web API UI, but what is happening when I click here, and how things work inside, and how you can use Comprehend, okay, in your application. So remember that Comprehend doesn't need you to be a machine learning engineer or scientist. So what you can do is something like this. So let's say I want to do detect the sentiment of a text. Okay, so let me increase the font size just in case it's not very clear. Okay, so I just created a small function. This is written in Python, but if you're not comfortable with Python, you can pick up any language. We have a lot of language support, but I just wanted to give you the intuition through code or CLI, which is more useful than UI. So what you do is first you have to import the module. So this is a Boto3. This is the module that we use to access any resource in AWS. So whatever service that you use from UI from here, everything, almost everything you can use in your code via Boto3 if you are using Python. So this is the SDK for AWS in Python. So now I've written a small wrapper function, but this function contains only two important line of code, okay, which can do the sentiment detection for us. First is this line, okay. So let me see if I can add. There's some way that I can add. Okay, yeah. So the first, if you focus on line number 3, here I'm creating a client called Comprehend. So this is how you create an object for the service. So now I'm creating an object for Comprehend. I'm typing it as Comprehend, but if it is S3, then you will type here S3, whatever it is, right? And then what I'm doing is I'm going to call comprehend dot detect sentiment. Okay, so this is the API call which I'm sending. Okay, and this function takes two arguments. One is the actual data, that is the text, and the language, whether it is English or Hindi or whatever it is, right? Based on the supported language we have seen. So these are the two things that we need. That's all. Okay, so once this API call is triggered, right, it goes to AWS Comprehend service, and it calls detect sentiment, and it will give you a response, and that response will be in the form of JSON, okay, which I'm storing it in raw data. And after that, this is just a JSON, and I'm just doing some filtering few of the data in the next couple of line of code, nothing fancy, and then ultimately, I will show the sentiment. So let's say I have a sample text file. So this contains some text. If you want to see that, it just contains some sample random text. Okay, so I am just reading this text file, and then I'm sending this to this function get sentiment. Okay, and get sentiment is nothing but this function. So now this will be stored, this particular document will be stored in this variable data, and then this data will be passed into Comprehend. Okay, and then it will return the sentiment score and the actual sentiment. So now if you see, this text is a neutral text, so it is neither positive nor negative. It's a neutral sentiment. And what is the confidence level? Confidence level is 74%. Okay, and one more thing I just missed to tell you is I am also printing the API. So as I said, all the AI-based services like Comprehend, these all are actually we have endpoints, and you just call that endpoint. Okay, so I'm just typing that, printing out that endpoint. So we can just do that using comprehend.meta, because this is a metadata, right? So this way you know that your text has actually gone to this endpoint, and it has analyzed that text and sent you this JSON response. Okay, this is as simple as that. So whatever we did here, exactly same thing is happening when you click analyze text. From this browser, this text is going as a data, and it is calling that endpoint which we have just printed out in Jupyter Notebook, and it is sending you the JSON response, and which that response we are just beautifying this on the right hand side into different categories. So now let's move on. So let's say I don't want to do a text analysis based on the whole text. Let's say you have a whole book. Okay, you have taken a PDF copy of the whole book, and you want to know in this book, which part of this book contains more positive stories or more negative stories, so that you know that how the author is changing has changed the storyline, right? So if that is the case, in that case you have to analyze each and every line or each and every paragraph of your text, right? So in that case, what you can do is you can do a batch prediction. Okay, so you can send the text in batches, not like one sentence at a time or one whole file at a time. So here what we did, we just opened that whole file and then send that whole file. So basically this whole text went to comprehend, and it could figure out this has a neutral sentiment, right? But in batch, what you can do is you can send lots of sentences at a time, and you can get the prediction in batches. So there is another file, news, which is just contains some news headlines, and I just saved it, and then we are reading it. Okay, so now if I just call the old function, it will give you that this is a positive, but we have no idea which newses are positive and how the analysis has been done, right? So it might so happen in this news text there are 100 newses, or 10 news, 10 lines, each line contains 10 different news, and maybe out of 10, 9 are positive, okay, and the one is negative. But since I'm sending the whole text, majority is positive, so the comprehend will detect that as a positive sentiment, right? But that is not always what you want. So what I did was I broke that file into small single lines, okay, and now I have saved everything into text. So if I just show you what text is, you'll find it's an array, and each line contains one news. Okay, and now I want that each line should be analyzed separately. Okay, so what we can do is now I'm not writing any function, but because I've shown you how to write and filter the response. But here I'll just show you how simply you can do it in 2 lines of code. So I just again create a object for comprehend using Boto3, and then in place of detect sentiment, I'm using batch detect sentiment. That's all. And again, in place of text, now I'm sending a array of text and the language. That's all. And now the response I get, it's again a JSON, but now this hash contains different elements. So this index 0, that means this is the first line of your text that you have passed. Okay, so the length of my text was 12. That means there are 12 lines in it. So if you read my response, so the response length will be also 12. So if you want to see that, let me show you this. So if you just see this result, it's 12. So it will just send you the result in batches, right? So you can see that, see, there are a couple of newses are neutral and there are few are positive, but when we analyze this completely, it's shown positive, right? That's the difference that it makes when you are doing it batch prediction. Okay, so this is basically the whole thing, how comprehend works. Now I have let's get into a little deep, and let's see what else we can do with comprehend. So this is an example with Twitter data. Okay, and I will try to show you how we can make classifiers in Comprehend. So basically this data is collected from Amazon itself. So what this data contains is, it contains lots of tweets from a lot of people, and this data set also categorize each and every tweet as two marks. One is normal tweet or follow-up tweet. Okay, so it might happen that your company is having a Twitter handle, and a lot of people will post with tagging you for your company, and you might want to follow up with few of the people where they ask you something, or there is some concern, or there is some negativity in their comment. So you want to follow up. You generally do not want to follow up with people who says good about your product or company, right? So they are already happy, right? You can always greet them, but to take action, you have to pick up the people who are criticizing your product or company or something of that sort. Okay, so this data set contains lots of tweet, and each tweet has two tag, either of 0 or 1. So 0 means it's a normal tweet, we will not take any action, and 1 is it needs some follow-up. So this data set has all that data, and what we are going to do now is we will try to use Comprehend and check that how good Comprehend can predict this. Okay, so that means when I'm sending this data to Comprehend, I will not give this 0 or 1 data. Okay, I will just give the tweet, and I will let Comprehend decide during the training period whether it could classify it correctly or not. Okay, so what we can do is, first is I'm just downloading the data set. It's a CSV file, okay, from S3. And now if you want to see how the data looks like, it has lots of columns. So it has 45 columns, right? And all contains various information. And if you see the last column, its last column can be either 0 or 1. So 0 means normal tweet, 1 means it needs follow-up. And the main tweet is this particular column description, which contains the actual text. Okay, so this is one of the text. So it's row number 15. I just printed out what that text is. So this is someone might have tweeted. Okay, so that's the whole data set that we have. If you see how many data we have roughly around 10,000 tweets, and each has 45 columns. But we are not interested in all the columns. All that we are interested in is on this column, right? This text, which we can analyze, and obviously we can we need to have this training labeled as well, so that later on we can verify the prediction that Comprehend gives with respect to this actual labels. So next, what I will do is, I will make a small, truncate the whole data, and I will just pick those two columns, the text column and the training label column. That's all. Other columns I will just drop it because it's of no use. Okay, and then I'm just counting how many data points I have with follow-up tag and with normal tag. This is just you can think of a normal data analysis. I'm just trying to see how the data looks like. So nothing started yet. I'm just playing with the data and seeing how the data looks like. So I see that almost out of 10,000, majority of the tweets doesn't need any follow-up because it has the tag 0. All right, so this is not a very balanced data set, but I'm just trying to see how those tweets looks like, which needs follow-up and which doesn't need follow-up. Okay, I'm just printing it out here. So it's nothing fancy so far. But now what we are going to do is, we are going to split that data into two sets, training and test. Okay, so training we will use to train, and test we will use to validate. So in machine learning, what happens is always, let's say you have 100 data points. You try to split the data points into training and testing. So training you use for training the model, and then testing data points you use to test the model, whether that model is good or not. Okay, so a general idea is what people use is they keep 80% of the data for training and 20% for testing. Okay, so or 90% for training and 10% for testing. So, so we are going to split that data, but before that, what we are doing is we are randomizing the data points. Okay, so we have all the serially, right? 0, 1, 2, 3, 4, all the rows as it was in the CSV, but we are just randomizing the data points, which is always good because it might so happen that when you get the data or when you get a CSV file, it might happen that CSV file was sorted based on some column, right? So and if you take the first 80% of the rows, it might happen that the last 80% of row would have been a unique set of data which was never used in the training, right? So that's why it's always good to randomize your data points. So that's what we are doing here. We just do some randomization of the data, and then we are splitting this data into 90% for training and 10% for testing. Okay, so once we do that, we are saving it into separate CSV. So we are saving it one in train CSV and another in test CSV. Okay, and we are also saving one more file, which is the same as same as this test CSV, but this doesn't contain the labels. Okay, so if you see, this contains training label and the actual text, but here it just contains the text. It is not containing the training label. Okay, this we will use this for testing later on. And then what we do is we are just uploading the CSV files on S3. So this is my bucket and I'm just uploading it to S3. So now what we did so far is we picked some data, Twitter data from S3, and we looked into that data, and we split that data into two data sets, training and testing, and we saved that data in S3 again, right? With Twitter in two folders. One is under training, another is under testing. Now what you can do is you can go to comprehend. So you can go to comprehend, and you can click on launch comprehend, and here we can so this is the first page that you see. This is the starting point, and here you can do normal text analysis, which we have seen before. You can type in any text and you can click on analyze and it will get analyzed. So if you just click on analyze, it will analyze. Same thing that we have seen in the here, right? Here, whatever we have seen here, same thing in the console. You can do it on the front page, but we have seen this, right? So now we are trying to make a custom classifier. So you can click on custom classifier and click on train a classifier, and then here you can give some name. So let's say demo 1, whatever name you want, and then you have to give you have to select any of these two options. So it can be multi-class or non-multi-class. So if you remember, in our data set, we have only a single class like 0 or 1, right? Any data point can be either 0 or 1, but there are a lot of data sets where class of a data point might be 0, 1, and 2, or maybe only 0. So like here, a data point 3 can be comedy or drama. Data point 2 can be drama. So like this. So in that case, you have to select this. Otherwise, you have to select the first option. And then you have to select the S3 location. So I know that where I've saved that training file. So I will go to that, and you can actually just click, select the folder, or you can go inside and click on, the CSV as well. So anything works. And then you have to give the path for output. So where after training, where it will store the model, right, or the artifacts, whatever you call it. So you can select some bucket, let's say output, choose. So now we are done with giving the data source, right? This is the input data or the training data, and this should be the output, right? And we have to give some IAM permission because Comprehend will go and talk to S3, right? So we need to give an IAM policy or role, IAM role. So I've created one role, so you can create one. It's pretty simple. And then you can click on train classifier. So now the moment you click and start the training, this will take some time, right? Because now what it is doing is it is now going to analyze all of your 9,000 lines of data set, and it will come up with a model, right? So but the actual workflow is, once this is done, All right. I will use the second one, which I have created, today only in the morning, because to save some time. But once this model, this gets over, if you click on, your classifier, like if I click on this one, which is completed, if you click on your classifier, you will find that your training got over, and it came out with 91% accuracy. That means 91% of the time it was accurate. Okay. And there are some other performance statistics like precision, recall. These are all machine learning related terms, but basically what precision means is the number of positive class that the model has predicted uh, with respect to the actual positive class of the data. Okay, so this is what the precision is. Similarly, we have recall and other things. All right, so once this is done, once your training is done, now you have to test it, right? So how you can do that? So you can go to analyze jobs, and you can create one job. Okay, so let's say my demo 2 or demo 1 test, and here we have to select what type of model that we have. It's a custom model. If you remember, we created custom model. The moment you click on this, you will find your model here, right? So the model that we just created, it is still going on, so that's why it is not showing up here. So this is showing the one which I have created in the morning, so Twitter data SL. And then you have to pass the test data. So this is the data which you have to which we have saved earlier in S3. So this is the data on which the testing will happen. So I will just again go back to that same bucket test. Again, you can go inside and give the right CSV, but let's select only the folder now. Okay, and then output for input format. So I know that in the CSV, every line is a new tweet, right? So I have to select one document per line, and after that, this is the output location. So this is the output location of the prediction. Okay, so previously when we created the classifier, we gave the output location of the classifier, but here this location is actually the output location of the prediction. So this is the data which is going to be tested, right? And after the testing is done, the comprehend will give a 0 or 1, whether every tweet is each and every tweet is going to be a follow-up tweet or a non-follow-up tweet. That result will be stored in this output directory, okay, or the bucket. So you can select the right folder. So let's say output. Okay, so maybe I'll go back here and select output. That's all. And again, you have to give the IAM policy, IAM role, sorry. So once you select that, you can just click on create jobs. Okay, so again, this job will take some time, but I've created one job in the morning, so that is completed. So basically, if you look at here, you can take this output data, right? So this is the output where your prediction are saved. Okay, so now we can analyze this data, whether this output was correct or not, and which is what we will do now. But before we go there, I can just copy this so that we can analyze this. But before we go there, I want to show you one last thing. Is when you create that model, right? There is an endpoint where okay, I'll show you later maybe. Okay, so let's go here in the now we are going to analyze that result, whether that data is correct or not. Okay, so here you give that output path of your S3, what we just copied. Okay, we can give that path here. Okay, and after that we can copy that into our present directory, and we can open that zip file, and then inside that you will find one file called prediction. Okay, and if you open that file, it will show you what is the predicted values that it has predicted. Okay, so before that what we are doing is we are also we are also checking the class labels, right? Whether it is 0 or 1, right? So if you see here, this is the file which we have saved right before, and which contains the class label. So this is the data set that we are going to compare with, okay, to see how good the our model was using comprehend. So this is the actual data which contains the class labels. Now let's look into this prediction file, okay, which the comprehend had predicted. So we just create a for loop to see the class predictions, because if I want to show you how that output looks like, then you will get a better understanding. So let me open this file. So this is the JSON that you get from comprehend, and if you see, it doesn't say every tweet is of 0 class or 1 class, but it gives you a probability score. So if you see the first line 0, it says there could be only 2 class, right? Class 0 or class 1. But if you see, the first element is always the class which contains the maximum probability. Okay, so for this particular first line of tweet, it figured out that it belongs to 62% it belongs to class 0, and 37% it belongs to class 1, right? So so then what would be the actual class label of the first line? It would be class 0. Okay, so similarly, if you look at this line here, the first is actually class 1, because the score confidence score is almost 96%, whereas for this 0 is 0.03%, right? So this is what the prediction .json file that we get from comprehend. Now to make sure that what is the class label and all of that, we write some code so that we know what is the actual predicted class, right? So if you see, all of these are predicted class as 0. And why it is 0? Because this is the probability of getting a class label of 1. Okay, so here all of these are very, very less, right? So that means that this is 0.00003% probability that it can be class 1. So that means it's nothing but it's class 0, right? So similarly, this one is 96% confident that it is class 1. So we just printed out, we are just playing with the same data that we got. Okay, now if we just put this data back to our actual data, which actually contain the class label, you can figure out what are the misclassifications. So if you see this line, right, this is a misclassified, which was actually 1, but comprehend has predicted as 0, right? So now there is some bunch of code which will do some performance analysis based on few of the machine learning performance metrics, and I'll just show you that performance matrix. What we call it as a confusion matrix. If you want to know more about confusion matrix, feel free to ping me. I will would be more than happy to help you with it is what confusion matrix is. But I will show you what this code is giving you, the final output. So this is a confusion matrix. Okay, so this confusion matrix is actually a small 4x4 block, where the bottom one is nothing but the predicted label, and this one is the true class or the true label. So that means this block, the top block, is actually what it is saying is how many of the elements are actually need to be followed up, and the model also predicted as followed up. Okay, so this is kind of a true positive. We in machine learning terms, we call this block as true positive. Similarly, this is a true negative, and then this is false positive, and then false negative. Okay, so we know that that means this diagonal elements should be as high as possible, and this diagonal elements of diagonal rather should be as close to 0 as possible, right? So if you see here, our model was 91% accurate. That means 10% of the time it was not that accurate. And these are the 10% of the data where the actual class of that data point or the tweet was normal, right? But my model predicted as 1 or follow up. So that is a wrong prediction. Similarly, this one, the class label of few of the data points which were actually followed up, but we predicted as normal, right? So this is what comprehend can do. So we have not written, if you look at this whole line of codes, we have not done anything machine learning specific, right? The only thing that we did machine learning specific, you can say, is we just used pandas data frame, that's all, just to load the data. But the model creation and classification, everything was done by comprehend. We just went to the UI and gave the data set, and it gave us a model, right, or the output. So this is what what comprehend can do to analyze your text, right? And we have now, if I just show you this, we have seen just sentiment analysis, but we have also seen entities, like it can predict whether a text contains any organization, location, dates, or whatever. But it can do a lot of other things. It can also check for syntax, like grammatical syntax, whether it's a noun, pronoun, verb, or whatever. So a lot of things it can do, and also it can create jobs, entities. So those are many other features that you may like to explore. But overall, you can use comprehend whenever you have some text in mind and you want to analyze. So then only you should come and explore this particular service. Lastly, I would like to show you something in medical. Comprehend medical is, if you see, this is my front page of Amazon Comprehend, right? And if you see, there is an orange tab called Comprehend, and then there is a small tab, right, Amazon Comprehend Medical. So this was recently launched, and it is mostly for a medical domain, right, where especially in the Western countries, it may not be that in use in India and Sri Lanka and this part of the world, but in US it's very important for any doctor or any health organization to capture all the data, or all the conversation that a person have or the patient have with the doctor, right, in a digital format. So we can use a lot of other services that we have to analyze the speech to text, but saving it just like a text may not help, right? So you have to, let's say, if you tell me that if I tell you that my blood pressure is this much, and I was suggested this particular medicine by the doctor, okay, and this medicine I have been taking for last 3 years. So if I just put that in a text, right, it may not be of that use, right? So we don't know what is my blood pressure. I have to read through, right? So there is no such structured data that is available when you store all of this in a plain text. So comprehend medical, what it can do is, whenever you pass some text like that, it can categorize all those data or keywords into different category. Like if you say chest pressure, right, it can say that, okay, this was the symptom, right, and when it happened, when you say today, it will map this with that date and time. Okay, so it can also detect what are the medicine name that you have given. So it can make you make the whole text very informative, right? It's just not a dead sentence with some text. All right, so this is very, very useful in medical domain. Now this is just one part of it. There can be a lot of other part, and I'm going to show you in next 5 minutes before I close off. I'll show you a quick demo of Amazon Comprehend Medical. So here, what we are going to do is, imagine that you have some data like X-ray or ECG or something like that, right? Which contains your ECG data as well as or the X-ray. But not only that, it might contain your personal information, right? Maybe your name, your age, your sex, and all of that. So let's say all medical research organization would need data for their further research, right? Let's say today for COVID, people are working day in day out for coming up with the vaccination, right? So they must be checking lots of X-ray reports and ECG reports of various patients. Now imagine that if you give all those data with all of their personal information, it is very dangerous, right? And it is not safe as well. And in few countries, it's illegal, right? So what we can do is using Comprehend and other services, like we are going to use recognition here. We can take one, let's say we take an example of X-ray. Okay, we have an X-ray where that X-ray contains personal information, right? But what we can do is we can use recognition, which is an service for image classification in AWS. We will first take that image, and we will find out where in that image we contain text. Okay, and then we will send that text to comprehend to analyze, and comprehend can tell me that that particular text contains personal information or not, which is also known as protected health information, PHI. Okay, and if the comprehend tells me that, okay, out of this 10 texts that you have sent me, which you have seen in your X-ray, out of this 10 text, 8 text contains personal information. So what I can do is I can take that information and I can again tell recognition that, okay, this 8 points are dangerous. These contains personal information. We need to blur that or something like that. We don't have to tell this to recognition. We can just write a couple of lines of code to blur that. Okay, so this is what we are going to do. So this is our bucket. This is our bucket where we have the X-ray image. So this is our X-ray image. I will show you what that image looks like. And now we are going to use recognition. Just like before, we are using Boto 3, and again, now in place of comprehend, we are using recognition, and we will be using comprehend as well. So we are creating another object for comprehend medical, but this time it is comprehend medical. And obviously we will be using S3 for saving our data or loading our data, whatever. So now this part is just downloading the image, and just formatting it so that I can print it here. So this is the X-ray image. I'll just zoom out a little bit so that you can see that. So you should see there are lots of text here, and a lot of them contains personal information, right? So what I'm going to do is I will call comprehend, and I will try to figure out what are the text from this image, right? Because I cannot send this image directly to comprehend, because comprehend is not the service which can analyze images, right? So I will first send it to recognition. So once I call recognition and detect and call this method called detect text, I will get all the text that this image contains. Okay, these are the text, all this text. So this is the text, this is the text, all this text, whatever it has seen, all right, in this image. And then I will add all this text in some variable, right? And then I will call comprehend. So here I'm calling comprehend. So this is a pipeline. This is how most of the services that you will be using in AWS. It's not always just one service, right? You have to stitch together different services to solve your problem. So now all this data is been saved into this variable, right? Text block. And now I'm passing this text block to comprehend medical to detect PHI, personal health information, and it will come up with some result with some prediction confidence score. But since this is a very sensitive data, even if the model is very less confident, I will still go I will still blur that text. So what I'm going to do is I will take all of this text information, and now what I'm going to do in the last block of code is I will just blur that, okay, in that image. So this is nothing but I'm just doing some image processing modules, and then I'm just blurring this off, okay, all this text. So now in this image I can use it for research. I can give it to the hospital and they can use it freely, right? So because to analyze your medical health information, data, you don't need the personal information. Maybe age you might need, because you have to know that what kind of medical condition or what is the age group of that person whose X-ray we are checking. So few of the metadata is needed, but age is still okay. But name or address or date, these are very much personal thing, right? So you can do a lot of things like this. So this is just one of the example of comprehend with medical, right? So there are a lot of other features that are available in comprehend medical, like what we have seen here. right? You can do some text analysis. Here we took an example of X-ray, but the idea is if you want to do text analysis for medical data, then you should not use comprehend. You should use comprehend medical. Okay, so it is specific to medical domain. So with that, I'll stop, and that's all I had today, just to give you a brief about comprehend and comprehend medical. And if you have any questions, feel free to ask now, or maybe later, whenever you feel like. You can reach out to me over LinkedIn, or because mostly I'm active in LinkedIn than Twitter, but you can ping even Manoj as well, and Rumesh. We talk frequently, so we'll be more than happy to help you. So with that, I will hand it over to Rumesh and Manoj.
Yeah. So thanks, Suman. I think that's a very informative session. Guys, now we open the Q&A session. So if you guys have a question, now it is the time. So we can take about 5 to 10 minutes. So you can unmute yourself and then ask your question.
So I have one question.
Yes.
So this similar to comprehend medical. Will there be any other like domain specialized services coming in? So, for example, finance, things like that.
That's a very good question. So as of now, I'm not aware of anything. We do have few of the specialized services, but you can have a look at new announcements. We have something in mind, but you can check it out. In the new coming up new announcement section. I guess we have that link. Maybe Manoj can share, or I can share. So that you should follow that. And if you have anything specific, there are lots of services. I myself do not remember all of them, but if you have anything specific, you can ping me. I will try to reach out, check which service would suit your requirement.
Hi,
Right, thanks.
I have a question. I saw that there's a translation services available in the Amazon. Can you able to produce a translation model there? Do you have any idea about that?
Yes, absolutely. So we have a translate, service which can translate one language to another. Let me, quickly show you that. It will not take much time. Okay. So mm, let's say, let me see if actually I had that in mind as well to show you. So this is a translate. I will just show you in the code, but same thing happens in
We
the
can't.
UI.
Have you shared your screen, Suman?
Oh, okay. I'm sorry. I just did not click it. Can you see my screen?
Yeah.
Okay, perfect. So this is translate. Okay, so again, this is just we have to call it as a Boto 3 client and translate, and that's all. Okay, and then what you can do is you can give some text, any text, right? So I'm just putting some text, and I'm saying that the source language is English. I want to convert it into Hindi. Okay, and what Amazon Translate, the way it works is you need to give the source language or target language not in terms of like this English Hindi. It has to be like in small 2 letters, because this is what the RFC standard says. Okay, so I just created one small lookup hash, and I will just call this function, translate my text. Okay, and what it does is basically it just calls this single line of code, translate text with the actual text, saying the source language and the target language. Once you do that, then it converts your language into the respective language that you asked for. So you can always use translate, and you can now think of like this. You can take this output from the translate and then send it to comprehend to analyze, because comprehend supports Hindi as well, right? So your user data might be in English, but you want to do a translation to Hindi and then analyze it. That also is perfect. So yeah, so it is supported.
Hello. Do this translator service give a facility to train a model? Translation model?
No, so the translate is a AI. So most of the AI based services, you don't. Let me show you that. So you can do a little bit of tuning and few of those things, but these AI based services are not. You are not entitled to do the training and all of that, because that is not the objective. If you want to do that, then use SageMaker, where you will come up with your own data set and own label, own algorithm. You can use any of the machine learning algorithm and then use it. Okay.
Thank you very much. Thank you.
Okay, so there is one question on. I saw that in chat. Someone was interested to know, how that confusion matrix works. So Manoj, is it okay if I just spend 2 minutes on this?
Yeah, sure, of course.
Okay. So this is a confusion matrix. Okay, so let's say I just delete all of these crazy numbers, names. This is the name is confusion matrix because it's very easy to get confused. Okay, but the idea of this confusion matrix is uh, to tell whether your model is good or bad. So this is basically a performance matrix. So how a machine learning engineer can say that his model is good or bad is based on, this is one of the way. There are a lot of different metrics, but this is one of the way. So how this works is, let's say you have any data set and the actual class levels were 0 and 1. And similarly, your prediction would be also 0 and 1. Now you make this whole 4 blocks. Now you know that when you have predicted 0 and the actual class is also 0, that means this is a good, that means your model is good. Similarly, this block, the bottom right, you have predicted 1 and the actual was 1. That means your prediction, your model is very good. But if you see anything, any data here or here, then it is very bad. So any data which is here or here, it's not good, right? But any data which is here or here, it's very good. Correct. So now if you, now how do we term all these different blocks? So there are different tricks to remember. The way I remember this is like this. First, you can type what is the, in this row, you can what you have predicted 1, right? So you can say I have predicted positive. Here also I predicted positive, and in this first row I predicted 0, right, which is kind of negative, is also negative. Okay, now you again come back to all these blocks. Let's say this right bottom block. Here I predicted positive and the actual is also positive. That means it's a true prediction. That's why I'm typing it T. Here also I predicted 0, the actual was also 0, so it is true. Here it should be false because I predicted 0 but the actual class level was 1, and here I predicted 1, the actual class level was 0, so it is false. So now the way to read this is true negative, false negative, true positive, false positive. Okay, so this is your confusion matrix. And now what is that precision and recall and all of that? So precision is TP, precision is TP divided by FP plus TP. That means all the positive points that you have predicted. Okay, so this is, let's say this you call it as P. Okay, all of this. Okay, then it would be P. So this is your precision. This is your precision. And what is recall, which we have seen in comprehend? Recall is nothing but TP divided by TP plus FN. Okay, so this is what recall is. So this is what basically what confusion matrix is, and what are the different performance metrics that you can have. So there are different, not only this performance confusion matrix can come up with lots of different matrices like precision, recall. Then there are a lot of things, TPR, FNR. So like FNR is FN divided by FN plus TP, like that. So there are a lot of metrics are there, but the basic idea is first you have to create this confusion matrix. And once this confusion matrix is is created, you can go ahead and create different numbers. So let's say I'll just show you that. I'll just paste it in the link so that you know what this is. Okay, series. This is a confusion matrix, and this is what the precision recall we discussed. But there are other terms: true positive, true positive rate, false positive, TPR, TNR, and all of that. So you can. So if you are into machine learning and you want to dive deep into performance metrics, you should refer to this.
Suman, I have a small question. Like in AWS, they offer machine learning specialty certification. So if you are to like are planning to take that exam, what prerequisites that we do have? Like, should we have a really good machine learning, background? And can you give a little
Sure.
idea?
Sure. Yeah. So we do have a machine learning, certification, which is recently, relatively new with respect to others. And this is one of the certification where almost 50% of the topics that are covered are general to machine learning. It has nothing to do with AWS. Okay. Just like precision recall and all of these confusion metrics, there will be questions around that, which is very much standard across everything, any machine learning in general. So anyone can get started with this, but maybe you need to spend some time on learning machine learning things rather than on the AWS thing. And then rest of the 50% will cover these services like SageMaker, Comprehend, and other services. But you don't have to be a master of all of that. You can start learning machine learning. Anyone can start learning or doing some machine learning thing and passionate about this. They can always get started with. And we have a machine learning university which is open to everyone, which was only for employees before. Maybe people can take use of all the training. There is lots of good training available, not only specific to AWS but general machine learning, and which will help them to get through the exam. But anyone can come up and write this exam. But the initial couple of months I would recommend to focus on only machine learning theory and basics, because that is what the exam covers. Unlike other AWS certification where almost 70 to 80% of the questions or topics are AWS specific, this machine learning is a little bit different.
Thanks. Yeah, I have
Suman,
another.
go ahead, Manoj.
Yeah, I have a small question. Like now, when we are developing software, especially for European region, like you mentioned, there are like, I mean, it's prohibited to use personal data without their consent or an agreement also, right? So, and you mentioned like Comprehend Medical, we can actually detect this personal data in the X-ray and all. Can we use Comprehend Medical to identify, personal data in general?
No, it is even if you give the data, it will not be able to categorize it because that is not the way it got trained at the back end. Because what at AWS people are doing is they are using lots of training data to train the model, right? Which we are not doing it, and all the data that they are training with all contains medical data. So now if I just give some text, random text, which I use for Comprehend or some personal data, it may not be able to give the prediction correctly. It will predict, it will not say that, okay, because at the end of the day text is nothing but a vector, right? Just a string of numbers, text. So it can give the prediction, but it may not be that accurate. But if your text contains medical related information, then sure, yes.
Thanks, Suman.
Suman, so could you please elaborate the pricing model for these services? In other words, like what I would like to know is whether we can seamlessly integrate this thing into a completely serverless infrastructure.
That's a very good question. So I guess Comprehend for this particular, because everything has, it, right? That in AWS, all pricing model is like very exhaustive. But in Comprehend, just like any other service, this is also API based. So the more every request that you send, you'll be charged. Here, if I write some text and click on this would be one request, right? But how Comprehend measures the billing is like this: if you have any sentence which is less than 300 characters, it will be categorized as 3 units. Okay, no matter you are sending it as one character or 2 character, doesn't matter. You'll be charged as per this. And there will be some free tier as well. So you can have 50,000 units of text, almost 5 million characters, which looks very very high, but it's not that high if you think intuitively. But this is the pricing model, and you have to keep in mind not only about the request, but also how many characters and text roughly you have in your document.
Okay, so does it contains any network charges as well, like with
No.
the S3?
No.
Okay.
It's just API. So it's not only for Comprehend, but for all the services. Basically, all the AI-based services like Comprehend, Recognition, and all of that. Most of these services, are API based on your request, and maybe you will be charged for S3 because most of the time you will be storing the data in S3. So that's kind of separate. But all of these services are, you are completely transparent to the infrastructure that they are using. So you are much it's AI service, right? You are at the top. You just send the request and get the response, send the request, get the response. That's all. How they are scaling, how much data you are passing on, that's a completely separate thing.
Very well. Yeah, thank you very much.
Cool.
Okay, guys, are there any more questions, or we can wind up the session?
Yeah, I think there is one question in the chat, last question, and it says that which instance is better. So there are a lot of instances that we have, P3, P2, M5, and other instances. But to get started with, maybe we can explore M5, which is a pretty decent instance, and maybe P2, P3 if you are very much into image processing or GPU intensive workload. And one instance you can use Inferentia for prediction, for inference, which I explained briefly in the recap. But yeah, for machine learning, building models and all of that, maybe P3, P2, and M5.
Are there any more questions, guys? Okay, so looks like we can wind up the session. Suman, thank you very much again for joining our meetup, and I hopefully we'll see you soon in another meetup as well.
Absolutely. Thank you so much. Thank you so much, Rumesh. Thank you so much, everyone. Thank you so much, Manoj. Thanks for your time.